Right as Tatsumaki is teleported, she almost instinctively puts up an aura of psychic power around her body to protect herself. If the gravity really is that much higher in this realm than on Earth, she might need it to not get instantly crushed. The portal dissipates around her, having finished transferring Tatsumaki into the Hametsu to Kurushimi, a dimension of pure chaos as Blast described it. And the moment the black hole portal vanishes, the Esper is hit with an intense wave of agony as she feels her skin suddenly burst into flames. No, not quite. It feels like it, but it's just the effects of the air brushing against her skin. As Blast said, it feels like heated glass shards shredding her entire body. Tatsumaki barely has enough time for her nerves to register that it's pitch black and that she can't even see her own hands before her eyes are flooded with pain from the air. She starts screaming in anguish, which soon proves to be a mistake as the air engulfs her tongue and mouth, making the pain even worse. With each breath Tatsumaki takes, her lungs are filled with more and more of the scorching air, which only intensifies the suffering. The Esper can barely hear her own screams over the sound of ringing in her ears from this torment. She closes her eyes and drops to her knees before instinctively curling up and clutching at her heart. As her lungs absorb the oxygen from the breaths she takes, the heated, agonizingly painful oxygen spreads through her entire inner body through her bloodstream, making Tatsumaki feel like she's being torn apart and burned from the inside. The Esper desperately tries to think of something that can save her, but there's nothing. No thoughts can distract her from the hellish torture. The only thing she can do is desperately try to keep her psychic aura up, as if that goes down, the intense gravity might prove fatal. As the torment goes on, seconds seem to turn into days. Tatsumaki's perception is being warped by the agony. Her mind starts playing tricks on her, as if the realm itself is trying to break her. The Esper begins imagining all the horrific ways she could perish. Surviving a month in here? Impossible. There's no way. She's going to die. But then, visions of all her worst fears flash through Tatsumaki's mind. A vision of her sister dying at the hands of an avatar of God causes her to freeze up. She starts to imagine her only living relative, Fubuki, and what kind of grief she would experience if Tatsumaki were to die. What kind of terrible death might await her at the hands of God. Tatsumaki imagines Fubuki dying over and over again. Blast too. And surprisingly, even a few visions of Boros' demise appear. Through all of this, Tatsumaki grits her teeth. No, she cannot surrender here. She will not be broken in this place when there's still so much she's got to do. People to protect, lives to save. She must survive. Tatsumaki focuses on her powers, trying her hardest to keep her psychic shield up. And after what seems like an eternity of agony, the Esper finally manages to utter a few words.
I will not die here.
On Earth, a cloud of shining dust flies across the city and beyond. It drifts far, far away from any population center before reaching a cave opening in a distant forest and descending into the dark cavern. The cloud of dust floats its way over to a figure sitting at the back wall of the cave before sinking into the creature's platinum skin. Platinum S perks up. One of my bodies has been destroyed. It had gathered quite a good amount of protein too. Who could have done this? I wouldn't have gone after any hero I know I can't beat. Is there some other unforeseen threat out there? I wonder. Sometime later, Boros and Kuseno bring Goketsu's broken body to Dr. Genus and his new laboratory in the mountains. The alien drags the giant into the facility, where the doctor has some of his underlings put him in a healing chamber, specifically designed to collect information about the individual inside and then provide it with the best treatment possible. Boros whistles at the sight. You constructed all this fancy new tech in just a week? You really are something. He comments before getting to the point. How long is his healing expected to take? Genus looks Goketsu up and down. Not long. Maybe 3 or 4 days at most.
Nice. You really are good.
The alien says with a smile.
Alright then, I'll leave you to it. I'll be back once his healing is done.
Genus nods, and with that, Boros leaves. Kuseno stays behind to chat with the scientist, though. He's intrigued with his potential new colleague. The Cyclops heads to Kuseno's laboratory to finally get Phoenix Man out of there. The old doctor has been bothered enough already. He deserves a break from the monsters living in his home. Boros walks into the building and finds Phoenix Man sitting on a sofa, still reading about heroes. He scoffs a bit.
Is it just me, or have you become extraordinarily lazy after your defeat? Then again, I don't know what you were like before. Maybe you were always a slacker.
Boros jokes, but Phoenix Man just shrugs.
I'm not wasting time. I'm learning. Preparing to become a hero. I know.
The alien says before changing the topic.
Anyways, we're moving out of this place.
This catches the bird monster by surprise.
Really?
Why? We have everything we need here.
Kuseno has been a big help. He designed and built my hero disguise. He let me stay here, he lets me keep her over here, and he lets me keep you here. I feel like I'm taking advantage of him at this point. The only thing I've given him in return is a bottomless energy supply, which, now that I say it out loud, is probably more than enough payment. But still, I need a new place to stay. I'm not someone who enjoys living from someone else's courtesy. Saitama's just bought a new house too, so this is a good time to move. And I'm bringing you along, of course, since I need to keep an eye on you and Goketsu.
Boros explains, and after a minute of contemplating, Phoenix Man nods.
Alright then.
Where do you plan to bring us?
I was thinking a good vast wasteland or a mountainous area would do nicely. I could carve out the inside of a mountain and call it home, just like the good old days back on my home planet.
So you used to live as a caveman, and now you want to go back to that? Phoenix Man raises an eyebrow. Boros chuckles in response.
No, not at all. With my salary, I could buy a whole lot of stuff to furnish the place. Hell, I could install a mansion with a magma pool, a man-eating plant garden, and all that crap. Just because we lived in mountains and caves doesn't mean we lived like savages. My people's technology was far more advanced than yours in many ways. It's just that the harsh environment on the surface of our home planet was very unsuited for habitats. To build something that could last on the surface was quite the undertaking. Only a few key structures were set up there. All the living quarters were in sprawling megacities deep underground.
Boros explains, and Phoenix Man perks up a bit.
Now that does sound intriguing.
Alright, I'll go along with it. Not like I have a choice anyway.
Great. Now let's take Rover and go find ourselves a good mountain.
And so the Cyclops, the Birdman, and the giant Hellhound depart in search of a new home. Some hours later, they arrive at a mountain range and spend some time blasting out a floor plan inside one of the largest mountains. Then Boros takes a few laps around the planet, going around various places and buying out a ton of metal, wood, and various other building supplies. After that, the construction starts, and Boros spends the next 3 days installing various things in the base. By the end of it, the interior looks pretty good. The place has a spacious hall at the center, which leads to many different rooms and paths across the mountain. Some of the more notable locations include a football field-sized kitchen, a lounge area the size of a small city block with a huge cinema-sized TV, a room filled with plants of all kinds, most of them carnivorous and highly dangerous, a small library for Phoenix Man, who's proven to be quite the reader in the days after his defeat, and a massive doggy bed for Rover. All in all, it's a nice place. Surprisingly nice. Phoenix Man can barely believe his eyes. I've never known galactic overlords as such dedicated builders. What gives?
It's a funny story, actually. When I first realized I was basically invincible, I got bored and started searching for things to do. I tried to get into architecture, science, even the art of writing poetry.
This gets Phoenix Man even more curious.
You? Writing poetry? I never would have guessed. Well, I sucked at it. Never picked it up again. I was a teenager back then, so I went through a phase. I did this hobby hunting for a few years before getting sick of it. Still, I did get to know quite a lot about building.
The alien chuckles before changing the topic.
Regardless, the home is done. We can get to what I really want to do now.
And that is...
Fight you, of course.
Boros slams his fists together.
You said you've still got those firestorm powers in you, which means you can be a great sparring partner for my training. You won't die due to your resurrection ability, and you're the closest thing to a good match available to me at the moment.
Phoenix Man's eyes widen. He does not want to be Boros' punching bag again.
Me?
What about Blast and that Saitama guy?
Blast is currently unavailable and Saitama is busy buying and setting up that new house of his. He's going through that whole human nonsense about taxes and paperwork and all that crap. And God knows what he'll do to me if I mess that up for him.
Boros chuckles before getting back to the topic at hand.
So yeah, you're the best pick currently.
To that, Phoenix Man shrugs in defeat.
If you say so.
Where are we doing this exactly?
Well, definitely not here next to my new home. Maybe the desert or something. Somewhere far away from civilization.
And just like that, the two of them leave Rover to sleep in his doggy bed and fly off to a remote desert landscape to duel. Boros is excited, and Phoenix Man is very nervous.
Hey, Boros, maybe less killing this time? It's excruciatingly painful.
He asks, and Boros looks at him for a few moments before responding.
I'll try my best to try.
His sweat drops and Phoenix Man sighs.
Whatever. Let's just get this over with.
He says before letting out a roar and tensing up his muscles. A bright golden light erupts from the bird monster's body, blinding Boros for a few moments. When the light dies down, Boros opens his eyes and sees Phoenix Man standing in the middle of a barren wasteland. Still in his brilliant eagle form, looking bewildered. For a moment, Boros wonders why, but then he realizes something. This seemed like Phoenix Man trying to power up, but his strength barely increased at all. What gives?
Hey, you good there?
Phoenix Man looks at his arms perplexed. He tries to power up again, to flame up just like he did when he became Firestorm Phoenix Man for the first time. But nothing happens.
What is this? What's wrong with me?
He asks and Boros walks up to him.
What's going on? I can't access my powers. I feel the firestorm burning inside of me. I was under the impression that I could just flame up whenever I wanted or use this power in my current form or something, but I just can't.
Phoenix Man can't find the words to describe this feeling.
You mean you can feel this power still inside you, but you can't bring it forth?
Boros' eye narrows a bit. This is a first for him. In all the aliens' years of battle and conquest, he's never seen a person who can't make use of their latent power which they know they have. Strange. For a second, Boros wonders if Phoenix Man is just messing with him to avoid sparring, but the alien quickly throws that idea out the window. Phoenix Man's panic and confusion are undoubtedly genuine. The two friends stay in the desert a little while, with Phoenix Man doing his best to regain his power and Boros trying to coach him through it. But after several hours of failed attempts, the two of them realize this isn't going anywhere.
Maybe you just need some kind of trigger to flame up, like a life or death situation, like last time.
Perhaps. Let's try this tomorrow. It's getting dark already.
Sure, we'll leave this be for today then. For now, there's one more thing I want us to do. I was saving this as a surprise to cheer you up after our fight, but I guess that works just as well here. We need to get you signed up as a hero.
Phoenix Man's eyes light up a little. He's been waiting for this for a while now.
You think I'm ready? After all the reading you've done, you should be more ready than I was back when I started my hero work, so I don't see why I can't put you to work right now.
He says, and the two of them head to the Hero HQ. There, Boros introduces Phoenix Man to the Association higher-ups and asks them to make him a hero. The Association is obviously displeased with yet another monster being recommended into their ranks, but as they talk to Phoenix Man and he begins explaining his motives, they do hear him out. The Birdman used to be human, but after feeling intense humiliation and suffering, he turned into a monster. He did some evil things, but now he's turned over a new leaf and just wants to be loved by the people around him. He wants to help, he wants to save lives, he wants to make children happy again, just like in the old days as a TV performer. He speaks rationally and fluently and shows no hostility whatsoever. Phoenix Man even begins fanboying over some of his favorite heroes to read about. And the public can just view him as another guy in an animal costume, just like Watchdog Man. There shouldn't be any public drama involved if Phoenix Man becomes a hero. After some discussion and evaluation, the Association higher-ups decide that Phoenix Man can become a hero. Now the only question is, how strong is he? Boros is about to vouch for the monster's power being pretty high by Earth standards before someone knocks on the door and walks in uninvited. It's a man in a cape with a Japanese swordsman look. The man has two katanas strapped to his hip. Class S, Rank 3, Atomic Samurai.
Hey, you snot-nosed businessman! What happened to those detectives you promised to lend myself and Silverfang to help track down Garou, huh?
He asks, his voice raised, clearly pissed off.
If they'd been with us as promised, we might have hunted the hero hunter down already.
He shouts, clearly agitated, before noticing Boros and Phoenix Man standing nearby. A bit of chaos ensues, with the Hero Association higher-ups telling Atomic Samurai that the detectives were supposed to be dispatched already and that they'll look into it. But the conversation quickly shifts to Boros and Phoenix Man. Atomic's eyes narrow.
Bird boy, long time no see. How are those burns I gave you?
They've healed just fine.
How are all those slashes I gave you?
Phoenix Man talks back. There's clearly still a bit of beef between them.
Just fine. Anyway, what are you doing here? Weren't you killed?
Kamikaze asks, and Phoenix Man briefly explains why Boros and Tatsumaki let him live. Meanwhile, the Association higher-ups are confused. This monster knows Atomic Samurai? And was able to cut the unparalleled Master Swordsman in battle? They inquire about this to Kamikaze, who simply hand-waves the question away by telling them, "We fought for a bit, yes," and then continuing to converse with Phoenix Man. Atomic Samurai is a little weary of the bird monster, but he seems a lot calmer and more under control now than before. And after hearing that Phoenix Man has no firestorm powers anymore, he softens up. At the same time, the Hero Association executives approve of Phoenix Man as a hero. If he was able to go toe-to-toe with Atomic Samurai, one of their best, then he'll no doubt be a powerful S-class asset to have. With that settled, the three heroes exit the room before Atomic Samurai turns to Boros.
It's actually quite fortunate that I've run into you here. I actually have something I want to ask of you. A favor.
Boros is a little surprised.
A favor? From me?
Yes. You see, I have this new sword that grants me immense power, but I can't control it very well for the time being. I need a strong sparring partner to practice on without killing them. Few people come to mind. Atomic Samurai trails off and a light appears in Boros' eye.
Anytime, any place, Samurai.
He smirks and Kamikaze smirks back.
Then how about right now, in a less populated place?
The Samurai suggests and Boros' grin widens.
Fine with me.
He answers and the three heroes travel outside of the Hero HQ. They walk a few miles before stopping in the wasteland left by Boros' invasion, where City A used to be a long time ago. Phoenix Man backs away, still fearful of Atomic Samurai's blade. He could ask to be sliced with it again, maybe that could reawaken his powers. But at the same time, Phoenix Man is scared. He could tell that last time the Sunblade nearly ended his life. It pushed his resurrection abilities to their very limit. It may have been pure luck that he managed to resurrect himself from the state Kamikaze left him in, and the monster doesn't want to test his luck a second time. At least not right now, when things are going so well for him. If the hero work really kicks his butt and makes him feel like slipping a noose around his neck, then Phoenix Man will ask Atomic to slice him. Well, he thinks that Boros and Kamikaze square off. You ready?
I am.
Kamikaze closes his eyes and concentrates on the Sunblade. Just like last time, after a few seconds, the sword responds. Atomic Samurai draws the Sunblade from its sheath and explodes into flames. He lunges at Boros with great speed and takes a swing at him from above. Boros raises one of his arms to block, and the blade collides with his shell for a moment before bouncing off. However, the alien is surprised to see that a massive chunk of land behind him has been eviscerated by the attack. On top of that, he actually felt the blow connect a little. Even while suppressed to this current level, Boros is still a force to be reckoned with, so making him feel anything is no small feat indeed. The alien can tell that that blade packs some serious firepower. Atomic Samurai unleashes a barrage of sword strikes at the alien, who keeps blocking them with one hand. With every stroke of the blade, Kamikaze vaporizes chunks of the terrain, etching deep scars into the wasteland. It's an impressive sight. However, the fact remains that Boros is just barely feeling the hits and blocking the blade with little effort. Finally, after 10 or so seconds of this, Atomic Samurai's body gives out, and he sheathes the blade before collapsing.
Not bad. Your weapon is quite potent. But more than that, your skill with a blade is exceptional. I wonder just how many thousands of hours you've spent into honing your technique.
Boros asks and Kamikaze chuckles. That was nothing. When I draw the Sunblade, it takes my body over. I start fighting on raw instinct. Until I master the Sunblade, my skill is far greater when fighting with a regular sword. Boros' eye widens slightly. This guy is this good with a blade while fighting on pure instinct alone? Now the alien really wants to see Atomic's actual skill. That thought gives him an idea.
How about we spar some more when you recover? With swords this time. I'll suppress myself to your level of speed and we can go at it.
Atomic is taken aback by this request. You want to clash swords with me? Do you even know how to properly wield a blade? A smirk appears on the alien's face.
I certainly used to. We'll see if I've still got my old skills.
He says before vanishing. A minute or two later, he reappears with a giant longsword in his hand.
There, this should do nicely. It's the most similar sword I could find to the ones I used to wield back home.
Kamikaze looks at Boros, a bit suspicious. Where did you get that?
I borrowed it from some antique shop. It said state-of-the-art sword, so I went there and grabbed this bad boy. I'm pretty sure the nameplate on this was the Excalibur. Sounds neat.
Boros says as he swings the sword around with surprising elegance. Atomic Samurai looks at him displeased. So you stole it?
I'll return it, I promise.
Boros says and waits for Kamikaze to recover some of his strength before the two of them square off for another sparring match. This time with blades. Kamikaze grips his katana with a single hand, thinking this should be a walk in the park. However, he's surprised to see Boros rather gracefully wielding his own blade with a single hand too. That's unexpected from someone who fights primarily using his fists.
Well, are we gonna start or what?
Boros asks and Atomic Samurai takes that as his cue to begin. He dashes in, getting up close to Boros and swinging his blade up at the alien's neck. Boros quickly rotates his own sword and blocks Kamikaze's advance before swinging his blade and knocking Atomic Samurai back a step. He then raises his sword high above his head and goes in for a crushing downward swing, which Kamikaze sidesteps before swinging his katana at Boros' side. The one-eyed alien jumps back to avoid the blade and goes in for another assault with his longsword, forcing Atomic Samurai on the defensive. Boros presses the samurai with his attacks until Kamikaze actually breaks a sweat defending himself and decides to step things up. He grips his sword with both hands and begins moving a lot faster, putting more power behind his strikes and giving Boros a much harder time blocking and parrying his attacks. Up until now, Kamikaze has simply been testing the waters, but now he's revealing some of his actual skill. Still, the Cyclops manages to hold out, and the fight rages on. Boros grips his own blade with two hands and tries to get some attacks of his own past the samurai's defense, but to no avail. The Master Swordsman blocks all of the Cyclops' blows, counterattacking swiftly after each one. The two clash their blades again and again, the clangs of metal against metal echoing through the wasteland. Boros is having a good time. He hasn't fought a man who's this good with a sword in forever. Meanwhile, Kamikaze is also having a great time. This alien is proving to be a surprisingly good sparring partner. Not as good as Atomic himself, of course, but better than even his own disciples. After exchanging a few hundred sword strokes, the two of them jump back and stare each other down for a few seconds. Boros smirks.
Now this is the kind of fighting I hadn't even realized I'd missed. I haven't wielded a sword in forever.
This remark catches Kamikaze a bit off guard. This guy is this good with a sword without having practiced with a blade for who knows how long? Still, Kamikaze is the superior swordsman here, and he decides to end it right now. He grips his blade with both hands and dashes in for another attack. Boros prepares to block, but the samurai masterfully catches Boros' blade with his own katana and twists it, knocking it out of the alien's hand. Boros is surprised, but pleased.
Not bad. You'd have made a great competitor back in my home planet. If you were a bit stronger and faster, that is. But still, your skill is admirable.
Atomic Samurai gives him a satisfied smirk. This wasn't even close to his true skill. Plus, he's still exhausted from wielding the Sunblade earlier. However, even in this state, he's still undoubtedly the best swordsman on Earth by a country mile. So Boros forcing him to show even a tiny bit of his true prowess is still an incredible feat by any standards. But upon hearing Boros' last remark, he raises an eyebrow. Competitor? What's that supposed to mean? He asks and Boros' smirk widens.
Back on my home planet, we used to have this annual festival called the Grand Gladoria. It was a tournament, a competition for warriors and gladiators of my species to prove their skill in battle. The fights took place inside a gigantic floating coliseum. It was a very fun and popular event. So popular that everyone's duties on and off world would be cancelled for a while, so every member of my kind could go back to our home planet and watch the event unfold. That's where I got my beginnings as a fighter back when I was a kid.
Boros says, reminiscing about the old days. Now Atomic Samurai's interest is really piqued. That explains why you're so good with a blade then. It sounds like a fun time. When's the next tournament gonna be? I might want to join. Kamikaze says jokingly, but stops chuckling when he sees the look in Boros' eye turn rather somber.
There won't be another tournament. There hasn't been one in a long, long time.
The alien says in what can only be described as a rather sad tone, catching the samurai a little off guard. Why is that? If it used to be so popular, then how come the tradition died out?
Simple. The planet is no more.
Boros says before regaining his usual nonchalant attitude.
Anyways, now it's really starting to get dark. I have to go check on Rover, take him out for a walk. I shudder to imagine the mess I'll have to clean up if I don't. It's been a great time, Atomic Samurai. Let's do this again soon.
Atomic Samurai decides not to pry any further and simply smiles at the alien, grateful for the good time as well. Aren't you forgetting something? Kamikaze asks as he points the tip of his sword at the blade Boros dropped at the end of their battle.
Oh, right, I promised to return that, didn't I?
Boros chuckles as he picks up the blade.
Now what shop did I take it from again? I think it was in City E. Or was it in City M?
Atomic Samurai facepalms. Regardless of that, Boros and Kamikaze agree to train together often. Boros honing his somewhat rusty skills as a swordsman for fun, and Kamikaze learning how to properly wield the Sunblade. With that settled, the two heroes wave each other goodbye, and Phoenix Man joins Boros as they head to their new home. Several hours later, deep into the night, a figure walks down a narrow alleyway. Suddenly, a shuriken comes flying at the man's face. The figure quickly raises an arm, leaving a blue trail as he expertly deflects the shuriken to the side. The weapon hits a wall and suddenly explodes, causing the man's eyes to widen.
Rigged shuriken!
Garou exclaims in his mind as he jumps up to avoid the explosion and lands on one of the rooftops. As he stands up, Garou is met with a barrage of shuriken and kunai. The human monster evades and deflects most of them, but while he's busy with a barrage of weapons, a figure suddenly appears behind him and attempts to drive a sword into his back. However, Garou notices and quickly dodges out of the way before hitting the attacker with a back kick and knocking him back a few feet. Garou turns to face him and smirks.
Well, if it isn't the weirdo ninja.
The name Speedo sounds Sonic. I'm pretty sure you know that.
The ninja stands up and smiles gleefully.
I didn't, actually. But never mind that. Why are you attacking me all of a sudden?
I just want to play. It's not often I meet people strong enough for me to consider worthy sparring partners to further increase my own strength. When we landed from the sky, I could tell just by looking at you. You are a worthy opponent. I felt the urge to test my strength against you. But you turned my invitation to battle down.
It just didn't feel right back then. We were both winded and I didn't want to fight in broad daylight in that condition.
Really? I thought the hero hunter fought any time and anywhere. Did you get spooked by the idea that a bunch of heroes might arrive?
Sonic chuckles and Garou responds with a roll of his eyes.
I'll take on every single hero at once when the time comes. But I'm not stupid enough to put myself in a position where I have to fight the strongest heroes while wounded.
Wow, I guess I didn't give you enough credit. From the rumors, I thought you were just a brute who fought recklessly without thinking.
I'll show you just how much of a brute I can be.
Garou snarls and Sonic smirks.
So does that mean we can fight now?
Sonic asks, a sinister grin contorting his face.
Now we can dance!
Garou says before kicking off the rooftop and dashing at Sonic with incredible speed. Instantly, the ninja responds by transforming into his monster form and sprinting at Garou. The two combatants exchange a flurry of blows, and the resulting shockwave from the collisions between their fists shatters windows and tears off pieces of the building surrounding them. The house, previously damaged by Sonic's exploding shuriken, starts collapsing. However, the two combatants move so fast that in their eyes the building is completely frozen and still. Numerous sonic booms ring out across the city as Sonic draws his blade and swings at Garou dozens of times in an instant. The martial artist works to deflect all the ninja's blows and counterattacks with vicious punches and kicks. Sonic is no slouch, however. He manages to dodge every attack before suddenly jumping into the air and unleashing a barrage of shuriken. Garou jumps back and out of their way.
Ha! Dodging these is child's play. Try something new!
The martial artist laughs before the shuriken suddenly switch trajectories and start following him.
Think again. How do you like my high-speed tracker shuriken?
Garou's eyes widen in surprise. He jumps from rooftop to rooftop, frequently changing directions, but the projectiles keep following him. The hero hunter can't escape them by running. He's forced to start dodging, evading the shuriken as they continue chasing him. The martial artist's eyes lock onto Sonic, who's standing atop one of the roofs, watching. Garou smirks before jumping towards Sonic at top speed, bringing the shuriken along with him. The ninja's eyes narrow.
Luring my own weapons towards me? That's the oldest trick in the book. Even a novice could see through it.
Sonic declares as he throws a dozen more shuriken towards Garou. That's exactly what the hero hunter was waiting for. He jumps into the sky. The tracker shuriken from before collide with the new ones in the exact spot where Garou was a mere fraction of a second ago, and all explode in a violent and deadly cloud of flames and debris. The martial artist smiles.
So much for your toys!
He laughs before Sonic appears at his side, the ninja's blade inches away from one of his eyes. Garou barely has enough time to tilt his head out of the way. He gets a cut on his temple, but manages to avoid the worst of this attack.
He used the explosions as a diversion. Clever bastard.
Garou thinks to himself before retaliating with a powerful kick aimed at Sonic's face. The ninja raises an arm to block it, but the attack is strong enough to send him flying, even through his guard. Sonic crashes into a building, flying through the living room of some poor guy living alone trying to make ends meet. The monster ninja comes flying out through the other side of the apartment building. He spins before firmly planting his feet on the wall of an adjacent building and springing off of it at full force, inadvertently kicking a hole into someone's kitchen. Sonic dashes towards Garou with insane speed, but the martial artist can still keep up with his movements. The two monsters dart around the city, clashing over and over again. Sonic receives several blows, with one particularly nasty elbow breaking a couple of his ribs. But in exchange, he dishes back several cuts on Garou, with one especially well-timed swing slicing off two of the martial artist's fingers. As the two exchange blow after blow, they continue moving at blinding speed, tearing up buildings and causing sonic booms and shockwaves to ripple across the neighborhood. And yet, there is no commotion. Not a single soul in the city notices, because the entire exchange takes less than 1/100th of a second. The collapsing building from the start of the fight hasn't moved an inch since the moment the two warriors started duking it out. Garou and Sonic clash again, the ninja's sword coming dangerously close to the martial artist's neck. But he's able to deflect the blow, the edge of the blade just barely cutting his skin. Sonic smirks and jumps back before unloading another flurry of exploding shuriken.
This'll trick again? You should know by now that it won't work!
Garou declares as he starts deflecting every shuriken with a water stream fist and sends them flying back at Sonic. Or rather, the spot where Sonic used to be. Garou's eyes widen as he realizes the ninja used the brief moment he'd taken his eyes off of him to vanish from his field of vision. The deflected shuriken soon change trajectory again and come flying at Garou once more. The human monster grunts, and that's when Sonic suddenly appears behind him and throws a sword at the hero hunter's face. Garou notices this and quickly deflects all the shuriken, this time sending him flying into nearby buildings to get them to explode, therefore neutralizing them. Then the hero hunter turns in the direction of Sonic and tilts his head out of the way of the ninja's blade, leaving it to harmlessly fly past him. Garou smirks and prepares to throw out some aggravating remark, but just then, just as Sonic's blade flies past the hero hunter's cheek, it starts glowing. The martial artist's eyes go wide as he tries to move away, but it's too late. The sword bursts into a blinding explosion, far more intense than any other shuriken prior. Garou lets out a blood-curdling scream of agony as the waves of shock and heat tear at his face. His cheek was mere inches away from the epicenter. Sonic grins wickedly. "How did you like my special bomb blade, huh?" The ninja asks as he watches his opponent fall to the ground, screaming and clutching his face.
Ah!
Garou grumbles, his vision blurry. His eyes were damaged by the explosion, and the pain is too great to even allow him to try to form any kind of sentence. "I'm sorry, were you trying to say something?" "You'll have to speak louder." Sonic chuckles gleefully. Garou writhes in pain for a few more seconds before willing his body to stop trembling. The pain is searing and unbearable, but the hero hunter forces himself to grit his teeth and rises to his knees and elbows. This catches Sonic by surprise. "You're tough," the ninja admits, taking a few steps closer to the human monster before pulling out a kunai. "I am grateful to have been able to fight you, but the battle is over," Sonic declares as finally the building from the start of the fight collapses. Suddenly, dozens upon dozens of alarms sound off across the city. Time resumes and numerous screams of horror drown the area as the town suddenly catches up to the devastation of the battle, with alarm systems and people alike finally registering the damage. Looks like the heroes are about to arrive. I was originally intending to finish you, but after how much entertainment and good training you provided, I'm feeling generous. You can live for now. Sonic chuckles before turning to leave. I must be on my way now, he says, preparing to jump away.
And where do you think you're going?
Garou's voice comes from behind the ninja. Sonic turns to him nonchalantly, not expecting this to be anything more than a feeble attempt to save face by Garou. But what he actually sees astonishes the ninja. Garou has gotten back up, and he's no longer clutching his face. This reveals the full extent of the damage the explosion did to him. The left half of the hero hunter's face has been torched, burnt muscle fibers clearly visible, blood gushing from several areas. His left eye is bloodshot, swollen and leaking blood. The other half of his face is severely bruised and scratched up. Sonic would have made a funny remark if the sight of Garou glaring at him wasn't so grisly, so terrifying. The ninja's expression shifts. He's not smiling anymore. Garou glares at him with intense bloodlust. He takes a step forward and Sonic instinctively takes a step back. The hero hunter, bloodied and scarred, looking more like a zombie than a person, continues walking towards him. With every step he takes, his foot falls heavier, until eventually Sonic hears every step as a roar of thunder. Garou's muscles tense up more and more. The ninja can sense it. The human monster's aura is growing larger and stronger with each step he takes. Soon it becomes overwhelming, so powerful that Sonic starts feeling it crushing him from all sides. How are you still walking? No man could still move after receiving such wounds! The ninja exclaims, his voice shaking.
You really think such meager damage would slow me down?
Garou takes another step towards him, causing Sonic to take yet another step back. This is a first. The ninja is terrified. Saitama's strength was intimidating, but not like this. Not like the human monster. Cold sweat runs down Sonic's spine. You're not human! The ninja yells, taking yet another step back. He's getting closer and closer to the edge.
You're damn right.
The human monster's voice is filled with malice, but even more than that, with joy. Sonic's face goes pale. Is this man... is he enjoying this? Sonic looks back and notices that he's a mere step away from falling off of the roof. He gulps and turns back to Garou, to that horrifying sight. The ninja makes up his mind. He turns around and jumps away, fleeing from the zombie before him. However, Garou isn't having any of it. He jumps after Sonic, catches up and grabs him by the leg.
Where are you going? The fun's just begun!
He shouts as he slams Sonic down to the street below. The ninja lands hard on his back, his entire body rattling and shaking from the impact. Garou drops down after him. He grabs Sonic by the head and starts repeatedly bashing the ninja's head into the concrete. Sonic tries to fight back. He grips a kunai in his hand before driving it into Garou's side, right between his ribs. However, the stab wound only serves to invigorate Garou more. The human monster leans back before delivering a devastating punch to Sonic's back, deepening the crater in the street. Sonic screams out in pain as the impact of the blow forms cracks that span across the street into several nearby buildings. That's when Garou hears it. The terrified screams of civilians nearby.
Huh?
The hero hunter snaps back to his senses. He looks around and sees all the havoc he and Sonic have caused. Then he looks at Sonic, lying in a puddle of his own blood beneath him.
That's enough. This is no place for this.
The martial artist says with a miserable look in his eyes before vanishing into thin air, leaving Sonic by himself. The ninja coughs up blood, exhausted both physically and mentally, the image of Garou standing before him still edged into his mind. Sonic is certain that he will never be able to get it out of his head. It will haunt him for the rest of his days, and that thought terrifies him far more than the danger of being found by heroes. Still, he needs to get out of Dodge. With the help of his monster regeneration, the ninja rises to his feet as soon as he's able to, and disappears into the night.